Take Back Your Health Now, Episode 73.
You're listening to the Take Back Your Health Now podcast, the show that interviews the top doctors, athletes, trainers, and entrepreneurs to help you find the holy grail of health. Now here's your host, Dr. Dan Margolin.
Hi, this is Dr. Dan Margolin with another segment of Take Back Your Health Now, where we pull out all the stops in search of health's holy grail. We have a very exciting show for you today. We have Dr. Neal Barnard. He's an adjunct associate professor of medicine at the George Washington University School of Medicine and Health Science in Washington, D.C. He's president of the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine and founder of Barnard Medical Center. Dr. Barnard is a fellow of the American College of Cardiology, the 2000 recipient of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine's Trailblazer Award, and has led numerous research studies investigating the effects of diet on diabetes, body weight, and chronic pain, including a groundbreaking study of dietary interventions in type 2 diabetes funded by the National Institutes of Health. Dr. Barnard has authored more than 70 scientific publications, as well as 18 books, including the New York Times bestseller, Power Foods for the Brain, and 20 Weight Loss Kickstart, and the USA Today bestseller, Dr. Barnard's Program for Reversing Diabetes. As the president of the Physicians Committee, Dr. Barnard leads programs advocating for preventative medicine, good nutrition, and higher ethical standards in research. He hosts 4 PBS television programs on nutrition and health, and is frequently called on the news programs to discuss issues related to nutrition and research. That is an amazing bio. How are you, sir?
I'm doing fine. It's great to be with you today.
We are excited to have you on board, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. So, let's sort of jump right in. How did you get started along these lines? I mean, it's a little bit atypical for a medical doctor to go into sort of the nutritional aspect of it. I think initially you focused on diabetes. Just tell us how you got started in this whole area.
It actually started the year before I went to medical school. I had a job at a Minneapolis hospital where I was the autopsy. It meant that I was hanging out in the morgue. And when people would die, I would help the pathologist figure out why they had died. And so I basically would bring in the bodies, put them on the exam table, help the pathologist do the exam cleanup afterwards. And one day there was a man who died of a massive heart attack in the hospital. And so the pathologist cut a big chunk of ribs off the front of the chest, which was filled with atherosclerotic plaque. And when he was done and he'd written up all his findings, he put the ribs back in the chest and he wrote up that the patient had had a myocardial infarction and so forth. As I was cleaning up the body and I put the ribs in the chest and sewed up the skin, and then I went up to the cafeteria afterwards to eat, they were serving ribs for lunch. And I have to tell you, it smelled like the body I had been working on. It looked like it, and I started to put 2 and 2 together, and I realized that actually is a body you're eating. And
Wow.
I didn't become a vegetarian at the time, but I couldn't eat that. And then as time went on, I started to explore this more, and I did become a vegetarian. And then I switched to a vegan diet and have continued to explore from there. You can do a lot of other things, reducing oils and having more natural foods and that kind of stuff. But that was really the start of it.
Dr. Barnard, what is the difference between a vegetarian diet and a vegan diet? Like, how are those different?
Sure. Well, first of all, they're both away from the diet that I grew up with. I grew up in Fargo, North Dakota, and it was a meat-based diet. So it was roast beef, baked potatoes, and corn pretty much every day, except for special occasions when it's roast beef, baked potatoes, and peas.
Totally different.
But a meal wasn't a meal unless it had a pork chop or a roast beef or a chicken leg or something like that at the center of it, and we didn't understand any other way of eating. But vegetarian, of course, means you don't eat meat. So for most people, that would mean you're not eating meat or you're not eating any animal muscle tissue. But vegetarians might consume milk or they may not. So vegan means you don't consume anything that comes from an animal. So out goes the dairy products and the eggs too. And that is a really, really good step, because once you're on a vegan diet, There's not a scrap of cholesterol anymore. There's not a scrap of animal fat. And everything you're eating is plant-derived. It's vitamin-rich, it's fiber-rich, and it gives you power that you didn't have from an animal-based diet, which is a really weak diet.
So, Dr. Barnard, so in your studies, have you found that much of the diseases that we're suffering, we're being inflicted with, are actually coming from the fact that we're eating animal products? Is that pretty much the basis?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. And of course, the story starts with heart disease, where back in the late 40s, people started tracking down the fact that when people eat animal products, their risk of heart disease goes up, and they realized that's because animal products have cholesterol, plants don't. Animal products have a lot of saturated fat, most plants don't. And then people put it to the test, where if you put a person on a vegetarian or especially vegan diet, their heart disease not only can be prevented, but it can be reversed. So that story has pretty much been written. But then what our team did was to look at just ordinary weight problems for people who they don't have a heart problem. They're just overweight, and right. The same diet works really, really, really well because fat is very high in calories and carbohydrates are not. I know that people imagine carbohydrates to be fattening. They're really the lowest calorie foods we eat, pretty much. And also then we've put it to work for diabetes in very carefully controlled tests, and found that a plant-based diet, I mean a vegan diet, and also keeping oils low, so you're not eating lots of fried stuff.
Right.
That when you put this diet to work, diabetes improves better than on any other diet, and in some cases it will just flat out go away. So it's been a terrific regimen to use.
Well, let's jump into diabetes. Just for the listeners, what is diabetes? How prevalent is it? And what are the significant side effects as a medical doctor you'd see to somebody that was an uncontrolled diabetic?
Yes, it's really the epidemic of our time. It comes in two main forms. Type diabetes, not so common. That's where the pancreas has stopped making insulin, and we can maybe talk about why that is. But the real common kind is called type 2. Type 2 means that you've still got insulin, your pancreas makes it, and insulin is supposed to move glucose, which is sugar. It's supposed to move glucose from your blood into the cells of the body so that it can be used. But that is, you've got the insulin, but it's not working so well. And so if the sugar continues to build up in the blood, you get all kinds of problems. You get heart problems, you get eye problems, you get kidney problems, you have nerve issues, all kinds of stuff. And so historically, this has been treated with a diet that was limited in carbohydrate. And this naive theory was carbohydrates digest to release sugar, which is true. So if you've got too much sugar in your blood, which is diabetes, you got sugar in your blood, don't eat sugar and don't eat carbohydrates because that adds the sugar to the blood. That's all sort of true, except for the fact that doesn't explain why the insulin isn't working.
Right.
And so if we can figure out why the insulin is working, then you can eat all the carbohydrate you want, within reason. And instead of the sugar building up in the blood, it goes into the cells where it powers your cell. So researchers at Yale University looked into the muscle cells and the liver cells, and they found that when fat builds up inside the cell, the insulin can't work anymore. And that revolutionized our understanding of this disease. Instead of worrying about carbohydrate, so instead of telling the patient don't eat rice and bread, what you tell the patient is let's get away from all that fatty junk. And so when the animal products are gone, there's no animal fat.
So when you're saying the fatty junk, you are specifically talking about?
Well, animal fats are the worst, but
Okay.
We're also going to keep vegetable oils low too, because
Okay.
I don't want to pack your cells high with any kind of fat. Now, you do need traces of fat in the diet, but you do not need animal fat at all, and you're better off avoiding it. And you don't need to slather vegetable oil all over your salad or your pasta.
Right.
So we teach people the non-oil cooking techniques, and the oils they will get will be just the traces that are natural in foods and are healthy. But there are two things to discover. The first is that although they thought they were being captured by a cult, where they were they thought they were going to have to wear tie-dyed clothes and acquire a taste for folk music.
Right. That's not part of it, right? You don't have a book
because they this is a vegan diet. They suddenly discover that a vegan diet is really liberal and tasty. As I said, when I grew up as a kid, it was roast beef and meat and maybe a potato. A very unimaginative diet. But vegan just means, so if I do that Mediterranean style, I'll have my angel hair pasta with mushrooms and tomatoes and spices. If I do it Latin American style, it just means skip the meat taco, have the bean burrito instead.
Right.
Or veggie fajitas, or I could do it Asian style. And there's a million ways to do it, and so the diet becomes much more rich and interesting than a diet based on a hunk of a pork chop. And the second thing people discover is they have control over their health that they thought they have, meaning they're on a sack of pills to start with, and suddenly the doctor says, well, you don't actually need this diabetes injection anymore. You don't need this pill. You don't need the blood pressure pills. And their sack gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and their energy gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And we have people where, of course, their heart disease is going to get better or gets reversed. Their chest pain goes away. Their diabetes improves. Sometimes it goes away. Their blood pressure gets better. Their erectile dysfunction very often gets better or just goes away. Their joints feel better. Person, if I could give a 66-year-old man his 16-year-old body again, that's kind of how they start feeling. They think, wow, I haven't felt this much energy since I was a kid, And
how long on average? Let's say they adopt this lifestyle full force. How long on average before they would actually see those kind of results or feel that way?
Well, some things start right away on day one. I mean, the weight loss will start right away. And that's because your diet is very high in fiber, so it satisfies your appetite with fewer. You start losing weight right away. Within the first week, your blood sugars usually start to fall. It can happen, different for different people, but usually by day 3 or 4, you'll start to see the blood sugars coming down, and then it's a gradual process. Blood pressure is a slower process because that tracks with. Sometimes the blood pressure drops quickly in the beginning, but as the weight comes down over weeks and months, your blood are better. If you went back to a laboratory, let's say, okay, you're past the first week. Let's say you went to a laboratory at maybe 8 weeks in or 12 weeks in. You're going to see huge changes in your cholesterol in the average person. You'll for sure. You'll see your blood sugar has come down substantially. In fact, the blood pressure lowering effect of a vegan diet is so strong that when people are treated by outside doctors and they come in to research study, I always call their doctor and I say, I want you to be ready to take a call from this patient, because if you're treating them with insulin or other powerful drugs and we're adding a vegan diet, their blood pressure can just tank. I mean, it can go down really low. And so they're going to shake and they're going to sweat. They got hypoglycemia. And the patient, of course, is thrilled because that means their medicines are officially too strong and they back off their drugs. But you got to be ready for it. So, but don't hurry. If a person is 100, I don't want a person to lose that in 3 months. I want them to take their time. You can lose that over a course of it took you years to get there. Let it come off gradually and safely. Don't cancel your doctor's appointment. Don't throw your medicines away, and do follow a healthy diet. And let me trace out what that means. A healthy diet is 4 foods: vegetables, fruits, whole grains, and legumes or beans. So vegetables, fruits, whole grains, beans. Take a vitamin B12 supplement. And if you're not getting any sunlight, take a vitamin D supplement. And you put that together and you got a pretty healthy regimen.
Wow. Is there a percentage that you would say, like it's 25% vegetables, 25% fruit, or is it just mix it up, or how does that work in terms of that?
Yeah, great question. I encourage people to just pick their own way. So let's say I've got somebody who's got Asian taste. They want to go Japanese style, Chinese style, Thai. They're going to be often grain heavy. So rice might be their thing. And of course, I'd encourage brown rice because it's got the whole rice. White rice isn't poison, but brown rice is better because it has the fiber.
Right.
A person might say, I'm Latin American. That's my thing. So they might be more bean heavy. And of course, if they like beans, but they're Italian, they might say, well, pinto beans are more Latin American, but for me, I like chickpeas. And then there's some people who like it lighter, and they might accentuate fruit a little bit more.
Okay. Is there a limitation, like is in terms of amount? I mean, can you eat pretty much if you're on this kind of a diet where fruit? Can you eat as much as you want?
Yes. Yes. You can eat as much as you want, because it's sort of like how much should you breathe. The reason you don't overbreathe is because you have a homeostatic mechanism in your brain that's tracking your blood oxygen levels and your blood carbon dioxide levels. And if you've been breathing the right amount, your body, without your knowing it, just says, right, don't overdo it. Or if you held your breath, in the bottom of the swimming pool for about a minute and a half, your body says, listen, it's time to breathe again. Right. So your body also has homeostatic mechanisms for how much you should eat. And it's tracking your nutrients and your fat stores. And if you're not eating enough, it says eat more. If you're eating too much, it tries to say less. But here's the problem. Your homeostatic mechanism for appetite depends on fiber. And if you have fiber in your diet, which is it's plant roughage, and beans and so forth, that will trigger your brain to shut off your appetite. But if you're eating Velveeta, it's not a plant. It doesn't have any fiber. If you're eating Spam or chicken or wild-caught salmon or organic grass-fed beef, they might make it sound fabulous, but it has no fiber, and you're going to tend to overdo it on calories, and you're going to have a little bit of pudginess that you wouldn't have if you would eat organic grass-fed asparagus.
That is fascinating. So really, the fiber is the thing that sort of oversees how much you're going to eat, how hungry you are.
The fiber goes into the stomach. It holds a little bit of water with it. Your stomach actually has nerves in it that kind of weigh what you're eating, so to speak. And so that is what really then turns off the appetite. So you can also defeat this vegan style. Like, let's say oil. I'm going to go to the movies and I'm going to get some popcorn and I'm going to have them pour like a cup and a half of oil all over the top. Well, oil came out of corn or olives, but they threw away the fiber to give you the oil. So you're now defeating it. In nature, if you were a chimpanzee and you pull fruit off or blossoms up, the fiber is intrinsic to the food. You never said, "Wait a minute, I'm gonna refine it and get the fiber out." Right. So, but humans, we're so clever. We figured out how to do all kinds of things that nature never intended us for us to do, like extract oil from olives or milk a cow or other things that are in the wrong direction.
Amazing. Let me ask you, Dr. Barnard, when you're out, just socially, at the mall or something, you get hungry, how difficult is it to stay on this kind of a diet? How can you actually incorporate these kind of diets just in a very busy lifestyle?
It's really easy. I don't even think about it. But let me draw an analogy. When I was, I hate to tell you this, but it's true. When I was in medical school, I smoked cigarettes. And we weren't stupid. We knew that, frankly, I would go in the hospital gift shop and buy Merit menthols, and my head of surgery was buying Marlboros. And we weren't stupid. We knew that it caused cancer, but we also knew that we were under stress. And as long as we would quit within a few years, we knew we'd be okay because it takes time to get cancer. Well, anyway, long story short, I decided I've just got to quit. And for the first week, I really missed cigarettes. And I thought, what am I going to do now, after I ate? What am I going to do when I'm walking into work in the morning? Because those are times when I would smoke a cigarette. Right. But after a month, if you just haven't had it at all, you kind of forget about it. And I'd never teased myself. I never tried to cut down. I just got it out of my life. So if you decide I'm not eating meat or dairy anymore, for the first week, you will have dreams about a double bacon cheeseburger piled high with cholesterol. But eventually, those foods, it sounds surprising, but turn you off, and you don't really want them anymore. If you're not teasing yourself with them, you kind of forget them. And so, if I'm out of town and some people say, let's get together for dinner, let's say I go to an Italian restaurant. Thinking international is a good idea because every culture's got millions of vegan things. Italian, they got pastas with vegetables or tomato sauce or arrabbiata sauce or pesto. Chinese restaurants have 30 different vegan dishes. Japanese, I'll go to a sushi bar. I won't have the fish sushi. I'll have the vegetable sushi and miso soup and salads. Mexican, I'm in heaven. They'll make me the bean burrito or veggie fajitas. There's lots of choices. At my desk, I keep lots of vegetables or not vegetables. I keep fruits like apples or bananas. Or my favorite thing now is a mixture of blueberries and bananas and papaya or mango. And blueberries to me are a little bit tart, but banana or a little bit of mango, it's like dessert.
Right. Sounds good.
So I'm not saying you can never have a Cliff Bar or a Kind Bar or some nuts or something like that if you're running through an airport and you want to have it. There's lots of choices, but it's really, really, really great to not say, just this once I'm going to have a McDonald's burger, because if you do, you're going to do it again 3 days later, and pretty soon you're shot.
That's right. Is there a point where, let's say you said 10% of my diet will be animal, 10% will not be? Is there that point where if you go up to 20%, that's where we start to see the real health risks, or is it basically like you really got to cut it out completely?
I think every step a person makes is a good step. So if I have a person say to me, I don't want to give it up completely, I'm just going to cut way down, I encourage them to go ahead and do that if they'd like to. Mainly because they will see some benefit and more importantly, they're going to start tasting and getting used to vegan food. So, they're going to be out to lunch and they're going to have a hummus sandwich instead of the grilled cheese. They're going to be out somewhere. They're going to have the veggie burger instead of the meat burger. They'll go to the store. They'll try the veggie sausage. I'm not saying they need to have these things, but they'll try. They'll start trying them. But at some point, I always encourage people to do it 100%. And the way we do it is I'll take a little time to just, without giving up meat and dairy, I'll ask them to just try out vegan foods, as we've been describing, and so you're not giving anything up. You're just adding things and trying out and seeing which ones you like and which ones you don't.
Are there cookbooks or anything like that you recommend?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Like I've got cookbooks that I have written, and there are many, many others. And we have an online program called the 21-Day Vegan Kickstart, which every day gives you menus and recipes and cooking videos.
Okay. Gotcha.
And by the way, it's a great program. We've had between 500,000 and 600,000 people do it.
Wow.
Yeah. It's massive. It's at pcrm.org, Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. It's pcrm.org. And if you want it in Spanish or Mandarin or Japanese, it is there. If you say, I'm from India, and so give me Indian recipes, they are there. It will change your life. But anyway, back to what the patient does. Let's say they say to me, I just want to do this like 90% because I'm not really sure. What I will say is take a little time and just figure out what the vegan foods are that you like. And then at some point when you're ready, do 3 weeks 100% vegan all the time. And what happens at the end of that time is, number one, they reach a level reaching otherwise. And I mean, their cholesterol level is better. Their blood sugars are better. Their weight loss is faster. And then the other thing is they start losing their taste for these other things. If they are incorporating a little meat here and there or a little cheese here and there, they are condemning themselves to a perpetual struggle with those unhealthy foods. It's always, am I overdoing it? And once you just forget about it, it's like a smoker. Can you imagine if you quit smoking 25 years ago, but you're still having one cigarette every 2 months?
Right.
It just nags you. Just forget it. And once you're no longer dependent on it, let me actually raise one other piece of this. The Adventists have weighed in on this very, very question in a really neat way. The Seventhday Adventist religion, as I understand it, says don't smoke, don't drink, avoid caffeine, but also encourages vegetarian diets. And some people. So anyway, researchers like me have studied these people. And what you find is that the people who follow the don't eat meat guideline all the way,
right,
or They are the skinniest. The vegans are the skinniest. And if you compare them to a person who eats meat less than once a week, that person is much heavier and has a much higher risk of diabetes. They're almost like the person who eats meat every day. So, what we say is just throw away the cigarettes if you're smoking, throw away the... And it sounds like a challenge, but you discover pretty soon you don't want it. And you also discover that you were kind of an addict before.
You don't realize it. I'll give you an example. My wife drinks water. So when we met, I would drink juice or all these kind of things. And she said, just drink water. And I hated water. And actually, I did it. And I gradually, now mostly what I drink is water. And I just don't even think about it. I don't have any desire to drink juice or soda. Water's fine. So absolutely, it took me a little while, but once I'm there, I would never go back. Doc, one of the things in your blog, you talk about hospitals and doctors being bystanders at this point to food-related illnesses. And even things like 67% of cardiologists spend 3 minutes or less discussing nutrition with patients. How is the medical community accepting your information, and what changes are they making, or are they not?
Well, the medical profession has accepted what we do. In fact, in June 2017, the American Medical Association actually came out and said that basically they were sick of patients waking up in the hospital to a breakfast of eggs and bacon and all the foods that got them in the first place.
Yep.
So, and the research that we do, it was the National Institutes of Health that funded our study on vegan diets for type 2 diabetes, and it was published by the American Diabetes Association. So it's not a question of acceptance. It's a question of translation into your practice. And so many doctors are now recommending of my books or Dean Ornish's books or John McDougall's books or Michael Greger has a great book called How Not to Die. There are some wonderful...
I interviewed Michael Greger, absolutely.
Yeah, there's a lot of great books out there. But here's the way we do it. And in 2016, I opened our own medical center called Barnard Medical Center. And here's the model, and every doctor ought to do this. The patient does not need more than 2 or 3 minutes of diet teaching from the doctor. The doctor has to just say, you got diabetes, your blood sugar is very high, your cholesterol is up too, and you also from losing some weight. And so here's the approach we use. And the doctor then takes out a piece of paper and draws a cell and shows how fat builds up in the cell. And this is why insulin isn't working. You don't need to do much more than that. Then you say, we use completely plant-based diets. I mean a vegan diet. But because that sounds new to you, would you like to sit down with the dietitian and she can explain how this works? The patient will say, okay. They'll bite their lip a little bit, but they'll say, okay. And then you bring them to the dietitian. That dietitian will take 40 and set out a menu and encourage them to do what I said before, which is explore these various foods. And the patient doesn't have to believe it or anything. They just have to say, all right, I'll give this a try. And then we have classes that we've set up that occur several times a week and they're free. They don't cost anything. And so the patient then brings his wife and he shows up to this Wednesday class, and everybody is like a kid at the swimming pool wondering if or will they enjoy it. And pretty soon they jump in and they're having a blast. And there isn't anybody who can't do it. So the doctor who complains about this is simply a doctor who never set up a good system. But I tell doctors, do you take your own x-rays? Well, no. I've got an x-ray tech who does that. Fine. Should you do your own diet teaching? No. Hire a dietitian. They do that. The dietitian can bill insurance. It's real easy to do. And so we've got the happiest doctors, the happiest patients, and tremendous success.
Wow. Well done. That really makes it very straightforward for doctors that are, they're also busy, and they may look at this and say, well, I don't want to actually spend that much time with the patient with this. It's a great handling for that. Doc, the other thing, prior to getting on the air, we spoke a little bit about one other disease, Alzheimer's disease. Can you go into a little bit about that and how diet, I guess, affects that?
In 1993 in Chicago, the Chicago Health and Aging Project, which was run by a brilliant researcher named Martha Claire Morris, they started tracking diet data on people in Chicago, and they found that saturated fat people eat, the higher their risk of Alzheimer's, by far. And saturated fat is the solid fat that's in cheese. Dairy products are the number one source, also in meat. And so I've been saying to get away from meat and cheese to protect your heart,
Right.
or to help your weight. But it turns out that the people who eat the least saturated fat cut their Alzheimer's risk, at least according to the Chicago data, by probably 2/3 or something like that. That's step one. Step two, trans fats, same story. The trans fats that are in a lot of snack foods, they increase Alzheimer's risk. Vitamin E, which is in nuts and seeds, and some other foods, it can cut Alzheimer's risk by about 50%.
Wow.
Exercise will help prevent it. So I wrote a book called Power Foods for the Brain, where I took all these different steps that people can use, and I put them together in a book and put recipes in. And for me, where my family history, and maybe yours too, has got this disease in it, and you think, man, give me anything other than that one.
Right.
This has been my...
Amazing. Dr. Barnard, the whole concept of our show is we're searching for the holy grail of health. So if I were to pose the question to you, what do you consider the holy grail of health to be? What would that be, sir?
For me, the holy grail of health is to get off the trajectory many people are on. Many people start dying, if I can put it that way, when they're in their mid-20s. By that, I mean they're starting to gain weight, and cholesterol is starting to get up. Their doctor says, well, over the long run, this will be a problem, but you're still young, so maybe it's not going to hurt you too much. But they're starting to sacrifice their health. Then when they're in their 40s and 50s and 60s, the doctor starts worrying about their cancer risk, and they have diabetes. They're on more and more medications. So their life is a slope downward, ultimately leading to death. What you should have instead is a box-shaped life. So in other words, instead of declining, your life is steady. You feel as good at 60 as you did at 16. And somewhere, you're not going to live forever, but when you're 85 or 95 or something like that, I think I'm going to probably die in the Formula One Grand Prix race in Monte Carlo. I'm going to die in a flaming inferno because a moment of inattention made me hit the wall. But you live life while you live life. For me, I still play in a rock and roll band just like I did when I was a teenager. I still am very busy. And you don't want to be held back.
I love it. You brought one thing up, cancer. How is cancer affected by these kind of diets?
Dramatically so. The digestive cancers like colorectal cancer, pretty obvious. You're eating meat products. Meat products contain carcinogens and encourage the growth of development of carcinogens in your digestive tract. So colorectal cancer, classic example of a diet-related disease. But so are the hormone-related cancers, like breast cancer in women and prostate cancer in men. Now, I don't it's a cure-all. It's not. And you could be on a healthy diet and you could still get these diseases. But the more you eat vegetables and fruits and healthy beans and grains and get the animal products and junk out of your life, the better your odds for a cancer-free life.
Dr. Neal Barnard, for people that want to learn more about you, how would they get in touch with you? How would they do that, sir?
Our website here is pcrm.org. There's lots of information for doctors and our Kickstart program. And I mentioned our rock and roll band. Go to it's called Carbon Works, as in we are made of carbon. These are our works. Go to carbonworksmusic.com and you will see some things that will also stimulate you to follow a healthier path there too. And that'll be another surprise we can talk about sometime.
Dr. Neal Barnard, thank you for a wonderful interview, sir. It was great.
Great speaking with you today.
This episode is sponsored by New Jersey Foot and Ankle Center in Oredo, New Jersey. Remember, when you have a foot problem, you've got a foot doctor in the family. Weekend and evening appointments are available. Call us at 201-261-9445. Once again, that's 201-261-9445. Thanks for listening. Check out the show notes over at drdanspeaks.com. If you're loving the show, head over to iTunes and leave us a review, and we'll catch you next time.